Well, welcome to another episode of Talking Shop. I've got my buddy Adam Schmela, who is a financial advisor, actually here, not in Fishers, but over in Carmel. But he and I have known each other for a few years now. Mm-hmm. He just joined the XY Planning Network with me, so he's got that going for him. But I asked him to come over. We've been talking shop for about an hour with the cameras off. Probably some good stuff there, but you guys missed out on that. Right. But I wanted him to come in, and I want to have a conversation about the value of a financial advisor. So before I let Adam kind of chime in, to give you kind of some background on this, there's been a lot of debate lately on Twitter about financial advisors' fees and the value that we provide. And the fee conversation is very important. It's also very frustrating for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But the frustration comes from, I don't think there's a right answer. And being a planner, wanting to find the answers, the fact that I can't come to a conclusion that says this is the best way for a financial advisor to charge a fee frustrates me. So it's not that I want to shy away from that conversation. It can get ugly. There's a lot of conversations I've muted on Twitter because of this. So we're going to save that actual conversation about the fees for another day, if ever. Right. But we're really going to talk about the value that we provide. So I'll turn that over to Adam and let you kind of start the conversation on, as a financial advisor, what do you think is the biggest value you bring to your clients?
Well, I think it is. So one of the early on books that I read was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you've read that book, one of the components of that book is basically his 4 quadrants of task management. Mm-hmm. So you have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I tell individuals is that pretty much everything that an advisor does, that a good advisor, a good planner does for their client, falls into quadrant 2, which is a quadrant of leadership. Mm-hmm. And those are tasks that are important, but not necessarily urgent. Okay. And the challenge from a planning standpoint with everything that we do as advisors and planners is typically by the time someone gets into quadrant 1, which is when things are important and urgent, there's not a lot that can be done. Mm-hmm. And so the challenge from an advisor's standpoint is to show up in a person's life, be effective and empathetic to their situation and circumstances, and connect with them in a way that you can motivate and empower them to take action. I learned a long time ago that one of the biggest values of a really good planner is not necessarily what we do for clients, but what they are empowered to do because we're in their life. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times, I don't know about you, but when I'll have a client come in, I use the analogy of they bring in a hefty sack and just dump a bunch of pieces of the puzzle on the table. Mm-hmm. And they've spent all this time trying to put those pieces together, and I stop them and I say, what's the one thing that you need to put together a puzzle? Mm-hmm. The box, mm-hmm. right? But without a box, without going through a plan and helping them understand what their box looks like, being able to put those pieces together the right way the first time mm-hmm. is really, really difficult to do. And all of those pieces typically fall into that second quadrant, the quadrant of leadership. So it's about connecting with someone. The value is really, how do I take someone from a place of being confused to a place of being confident in the decision-making process, mm-hmm. and taking someone from, all right, this is all the information I have. Now how do I translate that information into knowledge? Now that I have the knowledge, how do I have the wisdom to act on that knowledge? So it's a long answer, but
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think that part in your example shows why this debate on fees is so heated, and it's also so important, is that for the longest time, the value that a financial advisor provided was investment focused. Mm-hmm. And the debate is so much about percentage of assets under management is tied to investments. I think most advisors are willing to admit that investments are the least amount of value we provide.
Absolutely. And it's usually the part that we spend, that clients want to spend the least amount of time talking about.
Mm-hmm. So it's everything else, but yet the way a lot of us are compensated is tied to it. So that's where the whole debate comes in. But the thing that's tough to drive what our actual value is, there's hourly models or subscription models, mm-hmm. AUM, but how do you quantify creating that plan that could change the trajectory of someone's life? Yeah. How do you quantify the strategy that you present? I always fall back to this Social Security strategy, but how do you quantify finding somebody potentially up to $100,000 of extra Social Security benefits by doing a strategy? There's no way they would have ever known that. Yeah. You could say, okay, if you lived at this age, it's $100,000. We'll divide that over these years, and that's how much you should pay me. But we can't do that. So there's so much that we do that you can't quantify. And I'm not keeping a task list of here's the one thing I did that saved you from doing that.
You don't give them an itemized breakdown. This is how much I've saved you for you, right?
Here's all the dumb things you were going to do.
You would have done if I wasn't working with you.
Exactly. And let's tie values to those and then derive that to figure out how I get paid. So I think that's what's so hard is it used to be easy, whether it be commissions being sold for products, because it wasn't really advice.
It was all product focused.
Right. It wasn't advice. How do you drive value on advice? And from client to client, that's different.
Yeah.
So one argument is, does somebody with a $2 million portfolio have twice the amount of work that for the fee that they get? I don't know. Like, they could or they couldn't. And you could have somebody that is at $1 million portfolio that has twice the need of a $2 million. Like, I think that it's so tough, and that's, again, back to the frustration, that I don't think there's a right way in today's model to get it perfect.
I don't think there's a right way, but I think there are maybe not right and wrong, but just different filters through which one can look at it. So to your example about, does it take more time and effort? Does it take me more work? If I have $1 million client and the client brings me another check for $1 million and we invest that in your portfolio, and if I had the same fee schedule across the board, right? So now my fee, quote unquote, doubles. Was it more work for me in doing that?
Keep going.
Okay. We'll edit that.
Memory card died.
Is it more work for me to invest that $1 million? No. But in that filter, what we're doing is we're tying a fee to the amount of work performed, rather than tying the fee to the value delivered.
Right.
So it's like, so my wife's an optometrist, right? And this is something that I have to continually remind myself when I think about the debate back and forth about fees in our profession. Something that I remember her and I talking about shortly after she got out of school, and she had a patient in her chair, and her exam, she was down to about 7 minutes in exam, 7, 8, 9 minutes for this basic exam. And the patient was a cash patient, paid out of pocket, and confronted her on, I forget what her fee was, but let's say it was like $150, okay? So the patient came back and talked to Andrea and said, it was $150 for my exam. I was in there for 8 minutes. And Andrea didn't know it at the time. She was like, fairly fresh out of school, didn't know how to answer that. And this kind of goes into a whole mentoring thing, which would be another conversation, but the importance of mentorships. The practice that she was working at, the doc who had been practicing for like 30 years, said the next time that someone says that, what you have to tell them is that it took me 8 years of education to get to the point of seeing your eyes for 7 minutes and diagnosing it correctly the first time. That's why my fee is the way it is. And I have to continue to remind myself of that as well. Yes, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not an optometrist, but you and I both invested a significant amount of energy, resources, and candidly money in our education as certified financial planners. And so, yeah, it may not be tied directly to the quote-unquote amount of time that we spend, but the value in what we bring to clients and the implications, not only just in their generation, but potentially generational with their wealth. I mean, there's significant value in that. So
if you are a consumer, you're looking for an advisor, trying to figure out the value that you're getting from that advisor, a real quick list of some things that we help out with that you may not see on a statement it's the planning,
right?
It's the coordinating everything into one place and giving the recommendations. It's the strategy. You're back to the Social Security, but you could put it under known things. Tax planning. What are strategic ways to take money out? I mean, this is real impactful for retirees as far as building out an income stream and where do you take the investments? Where are they positioned to minimize taxes so you keep more of your money? And then ultimately, it's you didn't do these stupid things. The behavior. I won't say control, but the behavior assistance that we provide to clients. Those are all big things of value that if you're not getting that from your advisor, then I would start to question that relationship and maybe look elsewhere.
Well, it's like, Jack Nicklaus, if anybody's a golfer, you know the name Jack Nicklaus. He said the mark of a great golfer is not the number of great shots you take, but the number of bad shots you avoid.
Right.
And the same thing can be said from, if we look at it myopically through the point of investing, usually the biggest mistake that investors make are ones that they make themselves, and it's making those bad decisions and the role that an advisor can play, and where I think advisors candidly earn their fee is maybe not when everything's all rosy and great like it is or like it's been over the years, but when things start getting a little chaotic and tumultuous, that's really where the advisor earns.
It's the looming market crash and recession,
right? The crisis du jour, as one of our industry pundits would say.
Well, any closing thoughts before I let you plug your company about advisor value and what we do?
Well, I think just coming back to and I can't remember. I wish I could give credit where I heard this analogy, this metaphor, but if you think of an advisory firm or a typical comprehensive planner where, yes, they may be compensated by assets under management, but they're doing comprehensive planning on things that we've talked about, taxes, retirement income, estate planning, all those things, think of like your concentric circles.
Mm-hmm.
And so you begin with maybe, okay, it's cash flow, if that's like one of the most important things.
Mm-hmm.
And you have income tax planning, then you have retirement planning, then you have risk management and insurance planning, all these different things. And then around all of that is the biggest, most outermost circle of investment management.
Mm-hmm.
And the fee that's layered on top of that basically encompasses everything else that we're doing for a client. Yes, maybe to your point, all a client may see is that fee coming out on a quarterly basis. But remember, it's all of these other things that we provide.
Mm-hmm. And I think that as time goes on, we might see fee structures change that align what we're doing up with the value that we provide with the fee. But I don't know if we're there yet.
I don't know either. Exactly. And with the advent of organizations like the XY Planning Network, where more and more advisors like yourself, myself, are on a monthly subscription-based model, where there's that delineation between investment management and financial planning services, you may start to see some compression and some reduction on the asset management fee, because you're still paying for financial planning. It's just kind of been itemized out, if that's the way to look at it.
Real quick, plug your company. I'm going to plug one thing. If you're an
Fair enough.
optometrist, you need to give this guy a call for
There
your
we go.
planning. But plug your company and your Twitter handle, whatever else.
Sure. So I'm the founder of Integrated Planning and Wealth Management, as Justin said, located here in Carmel. I have clients in 17 states around the country. So my primary clients are what I call white coat professionals, so optometrists, pharmacists, dentists, and physicians, OD, MD, PharmD, DDS. So that's kind of my bread and butter. And you can follow me on Twitter at @Shmela. Don't try and spell it. I'll spell it for you. It's ACMEJLA. So @Shmela, or @Shmela on Twitter. And integratedpwm.com is the website.
I'll link to all those in the show notes below.
Thank you, Justin.
Adam, thanks for coming over and spending some time.
Appreciate
It was a
it.
good
You got me all hopped
conversation.
up on coffee here. I don't know if I'll be able to go to sleep tonight. But
That's all right. He gets more work done.
there we go.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And I will see you all in the next episode of Talking Shop.
Cool.